Okay, we've armed ourselves with the language of the brain, the SCARE model. We know that to get consistent growth, we must move people out of this threat state into a reward state. So now I want to look at a tool that you can use every day to apply that knowledge, the continuous check-in. So the annual review process is inherently threatening, as we've discussed, because it offers zero certainty throughout the year. It's really is like everything is a surprise when it comes to that time of the year. So to build a true performance culture, then we've got to replace that single high stakes event with a pattern of frequent low stake interactions. And this is the power of frequent connection. It's like giving your team a constant drip feed of safety and clarity, directly minimizing that certainty threat. But these check-ins shouldn't just be status updates. They need to be dedicated, structured, coaching style conversations. And we need a simple framework to ensure that every time we meet with a team member, we're addressing the core elements of performance and development. And for that, we use the PI, the check-in model, the PI check-in model. So by using PI, it ensures that our conversations are holistic and brain friendly. So the P stands for performance. Where are we at on the work? Now, here, rather than just asking a very blunt, kind of direct question, where are you at on that work? Because that, again, can trigger that threat response. Try softening it a little bit. Try having a little bit more brain-friendly, humanized approach to it. You could try something like saying, what are you most proud of doing, accomplishing since we last spoke? What part of that success are you ready to be able to replicate on other projects or even teach and show other team members? Now, that question is effective because it reinforces status. You're asking people, what are you most proud of? And that immediately validates their work and recognizes their value and expertise. And that's a really powerful status reward. It focuses on the positive behaviours. It directs the conversation towards successful behaviours and outcomes. And that encourages, again, that move towards the reward state. It encourages autonomy and mastery. Because that second part of the kind of question, what part of that success are you ready to replicate, positions the employee as a bit of an expert. And it reinforces their autonomy, the control that they have over their own knowledge, and supports their desire for kind of growing and developing their skills. It also promotes future action because it naturally sets up the conversation for the next steps, asking them to identify the behaviours they could repeat. And that provides certainty for future work. So this approach ensures the check-ins is an opportunity for celebration and strategic reflection rather than just a status update. This is where we're at. The I is for individual. So how are you doing and what are your goals? Really is the kind of the theme here, all about addressing relatedness. Now, one question that I always recommend should be included in performance check-ins is, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your current energy and capacity level? So this is asking about the human. I'm showing I'm interested, I care about you, the individual. And this question helps us to focus on protecting that team member's brain capacity, which means that they're going to be more able to perform at the best. Because when that individual's kind of capacity, when their energy levels are low, when the workloads are high, for example, then that capacity threshold, and it's different for everyone, could well be exceeded. And as soon as we start to reach that capacity threshold and it tips over, a threat response is triggered, and that further impairs performance. But by asking about that question about capacity and energy, then as the manager, you can ensure that team members' workload is correctly prioritised against their capacity. Now, that may mean that sometimes we have to deprioritise some tasks because, for whatever reason, whatever's going on with that individual, their capacity at the moment is just way too high, and that's triggering that threat response. But you need them to do a really good piece of work on certain things, so you need to actually look at what can you deprioritize. Now, I appreciate not every manager will go along with that. I might not get the approval of some managers, but it's certainly a far better alternative to overloading team members so that their actual capacity is exceeded, a threat response is triggered, and the performance will naturally decrease because of their impaired cognitive ability. And the E stands for expectations. What's next? Ensuring that there's real clarity around what the next steps are and what your expectations of them are. This is all about maximizing certainty so that when at the end of that conversation, your team member goes away energized, we've actually pushed them towards the reward state, the productive state, as opposed to the protective state, the threat state. We've created some certainty in doing that. They know exactly what you are expecting in the forthcoming days. And if we constantly use this pie structure, then we will naturally just be continually minimizing threats and reinforcing rewards.